My name is Jean Seaton, and I'm the director of something called the Orwell Prize, and we've organised a strand of arguments and debates all through the literary festival. And we're extremely pleased to have two very distinguished exponents, discussers of the problem as what the future of Britain is tonight. Peter Kellner started out life, I don't think he didn't start out life really, as a journalist, I suppose.
Fewer these days.
What?
Fewer starting out.
Fewer start out life as journalist. And was originally part of the famous Sunday Times Insight team. He's moved on to grander things, and if you really want to know who's going to win the election, Peter, who runs YouGov, which has been most accurate about election results, is actually the best bet, probably, in the whole of Oxford. But all of those cephalogists, nevertheless, depend on Peter. So YouGov's actually been a very interesting and important new kind of polling, using new methods, and it's proved itself very quickly. And he's written a book on democracy, 1,000 years of British liberty, which is a tour de force running through, really, it's not exactly a weak history of British democracy, but it's very much running through the way in which a certain kind of notion of British political settlement, British rights, British character actually were evolved through a set of histories. It's an important and interesting book, and it's got a radical message, really. Ian Jack is, I have to say, if you haven't read The Guardian today, or if you, even better, you go out and buy at immense expense The Economist Intelligence, which is the Economist arts bit. There is an essay by Ian on that really famous photograph that we all think of as being doomed-off Etonians, being mocked, being looked at by three working-class men. And it is the most wonderful essay, which I think in the end is rather tragic, about who those people really were, who those boys really were, what that photograph meant, how it was taken. And that's one of those great iconic photographs of class and privilege and the two Britons, which one can't, which still feels relevant. But his wonderful essay, which is typical of Ian's whole extraordinary capacity to get into bits of British social history and explore them with new intentions. But the other thing that Ian has done is half of the writers that you might want to buy a book of at the Literary Festival have been nurtured and produced by Ian. He's one of those great editors and producers of other people's writing, a great generosity.
Not David Dimbleby.
But not David Dimbleby. Not responsible.
Nothing against David Dimbleby.
You were worried.
I just noticed him now.
You just noticed him. No, much more wonderful. And in fact, on the Orwell Prize, we've dealt with first-time writers that Ian a long time ago sometimes set going. So there's that extraordinary editing eye, which I think is often undervalued in literature. The problem we have got tonight is which is a very Orwell problem. Orwell wrote a great deal about Britishness in a time when we always we spend most of our time talking about something called globalisation. Talking about Britishness has become, in a sense, a slightly dangerous thing to do. And it seems to me we are really at a moment, and it's certainly true in universities, when it's very difficult to talk about Britishness. You can talk about many different cultures, but talking about Britishness, people feel as if it's a slightly awkward thing to do. And at the same time, our constitutional arrangements, because Britishness was invented on a foreign war, it has a constitutional reality that's taken place. Those constitutional arrangements do look under all sorts of pressures. And so it seemed to me, both an Orwell moment to talk about Britishness, but also a really good time to take pressure. But these two people have been taking the temperature. And Ian's wonderful book, which sort of says, you know, the place formerly known as Great Britain, but has a set of essays in it which really explore some of our provincial Britishnesses and how those are composed. So I'm going to ask Ian to talk for a bit, then Peter to talk for a bit, and then I might ask them a question, then I'll open it up to you to ask some questions.